Well, good day. So, for today's video, we're gonna go back to Bedrock and talk about the first cartoon appearance of that bouncing baby boy of muscles, Bamm-Bamm Rubble. So, alright, let's go.
Yeah. So, we start off in the home of Fred and Wilma Flintstone, where they are entertaining Barney and Betty Rubble again. And the Rubbles are trying to hog all of the attention of the new baby Pebbles. So, Fred is a little tired of this, right? Like, sometimes when you come home from work, you just want to sit back, relax, do nothing, not have to worry about entertaining people. And also, as we know, Fred is a little jealous and possessive of his family, so he gets mad and kicks the Rubbles out. But thankfully, Fred does have enough brains and heart to apologize for his rude behavior, so that is nice. But as it turns out, the reason that the Rubbles are constantly visiting Pebbles is because they have baby fever, and they want their own child. So they try, and they try, every single night. Wine, dine, good time. Which seems like a bit much information from cartoon characters, but that's not coming from me. That's what they wrote in the cartoon. But unfortunately, they're not able to conceive their own child. So that's why they keep hanging out with Pebbles, a form of emotional medication. And it's really depressing them. Ugh. Luckily for them, a shooting star shoots across the sky. So they make a wish upon said star. And I wonder what they could possibly be wishing for. The next day, as Barney is grabbing a newspaper, he hears a small cry come out from a turtle shell on his doorstep. And inside, there is a little baby boy. Holy crap! Betty finds a note inside of the shell asking for them to take care of this orphan child, which is named Bamm-Bamm. Bamm-Bamm? That's a weird name. Is that short for something? Like Bamm-Bammathan? Bamm-Bammofer? But, we find that the name Bamm-Bamm is very apt, as this child is made of pure muscle. He tosses Barney around like a rag doll. Which, man oh man, can't be good for parenting. Like, if you'll be trying to get this kid to go to bed at bedtime, and he don't want to go to bed, well, he ain't going to bed. The next day, Fred and Wilma find out about Bamm-Bamm, and they celebrate with the Rubbles. And for the first time ever, Pebbles gets to meet her new neighbor, Bamm-Bamm. And it is love at first sight. These two are inseparable. Right off the bat, Bamm-Bamm will do whatever he can to protect Pebbles. Tries to help her walk. So many things. Just adorable. So as awesome as it is for the Rubbles to get a baby dropped on their doorstep, they also know a thing or two about the law. So they take Bamm-Bamm downtown to the Child Welfare Authority to legally adopt him. It has taken some time, obviously. You gotta do background checks and applications and blah, 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 blah. Not a simple little request that can be done in 10 minutes. But sad news. After a week of waiting, we learn that their application for adoption has been denied. Bamm-Bamm will be going to another home. It's heartbreaking for the Rubbles, but at least Bamm-Bamm will have someone to look over him, I guess. But it's just not fair. I'm sorry, I'm not crying. It's just a pterodactyl in my eye or something. Come on, Zuber, get it together. It's just a cartoon. Okay. And the Rubbles get it together as they go to the Child Authority to fight for the right to adopt Bamm-Bamm. Which may be pretty difficult, seeing as before they put in their application for adoption, there was an earlier application in for Bamm-Bamm, which happened to come from the very well-to-do Mr. Stonyfeller. And, wait a second. How did this Stonyfeller put in an application for Bamm-Bamm? Didn't somebody just leave Bamm-Bamm on the Rubbles' doorstep? With a note in it saying, please take care of my kid?
how did that happen if Bam Bam was at the orphanage and there was an application put in to adopt him? Did the biological parents not want the Stony Fellers to adopt their kid? Like,
The plot thickens.
But with an earlier application, already been approved, it's pretty much case closed, right?
May or may not be, but the Rubbles still have the fight inside of them. And so they hire the lawyer, Mr. Brontoberger, and they go to court. And, oh God, it's not looking good right off the bat. Mr. Stonyfeller, of course, being pretty rich, he can afford the best lawyer in the land, which happens to be Perry Masonry.
Worse yet, the case is being presided by Judge Stonyfeller,
Mr. Stonyfeller's brother.
So that can't be good. And wait a second, that sounds kind of like a conflict of interest of sorts.
Can you really be a judge presiding over a case with your own frickin' brother? Sounds like some shenanigans. I don't like it. Anywho,
as the case goes on with Perry Masonry working his legal magic,
unfortunately for the Rubbles, Mr. Stonyfeller wins custody of Bam Bam.
But a twist! Mr. Stonyfeller gets a call that his wife is pregnant. And he figures, if we can have our own kid, we don't need to adopt this Bam Bam child.
So he backpedals on the adoption and he gives the Rubbles custody of Bam Bam.
Which, hooray for the... What? Wait a second. What the hell just happened? You just discarded this orphan child at the drop of a hat because you can suddenly have your own kid? Why did you even bother going to court? Like, did you really want to adopt him? Oh my God, man. Like, that is heartless. If you've seen another application for Bam Bam, why not just adopt another kid if you didn't care? Ugh. Sorry, I digress. That's just, man. So, like, hooray for the Rubbles, right? Like, that's really awesome. And Bam Bam wanted to be with the Rubbles, so, double hooray.
Unfortunately,
Barney did not hear the good news, right? He just took off and went for a walk, trying to deal with this. First, you can't have your own kid. Next, you can't adopt a kid that you want. So he went to a bridge, tied a rock around his waist, and he's gonna jump in? Oh my God! This is a kid's cartoon! Luckily, Fred stepped in and diverted any disastrous decision by Barney, as Fred falls in the river and we see that the river's not deep at all. Oh, okay, so Barney really didn't want to do anything? He was just going through the motions, but, still, that goes hard, man. Oi! But after all of that, the day is saved! Hooray! Barney doesn't jump, Fred dries off,
and the Rubbles are now 3.
And with that, that is the end of this,
Stone Age tale.
Hey, man, geez, what a memorable episode. So generally, when I watch a Flintstones episode, I'm anticipating a couple of things. Either bowling, Fred and Barney getting in a fight, or getting in a get-rich-quick scheme, them getting in a fight with Betty and Wilma, and their wives needing to bail them out for whatever reason. Oh, and someone getting hit in the head with something and getting that really big lump, kind of going on. That. This episode, not so much. Pretty much the complete opposite. Instead of silly, goofy things happen, this episode, actually went pretty serious. If this script was adapted for some show that was a drama, it would be a fantastic episode. Right? You have court proceedings. You have these little tricks that lawyers do in court to trick people. You have lengthy adoption processes. You have child abandonment. And you have a couple that cannot conceive a child together. That's a pretty serious issue. It happens a lot in life, but man, you don't really see it a whole heaping amount on TV. And the Flintstones, kind of played it pretty good. I have to give them a lot of props and respect for this episode. Barney and Betty can't have kids, they show them, being really distraught about it and trying to deal with this. One of the ways that they do deal with it, is hanging out with Pebbles a whole lot. But then later on, it just shows that that's just a band-aid for their emotional, hurt. Then the joy of the possibility of adopting a baby that landed on their doorstep. And then the Rubbles get the bad news that somebody else was given the baby that they so desperately wanted. Like, realistically, man, what an emotional roller coaster. Like, holy crap! So much so, to the point that Barney tied a rock around his waist and wanted to jump off of a bridge. Oh my god! But again, maybe that's just his way of dealing with it. We've seen that the river really isn't that deep, when Fred fell into it. The water barely went up to his butt. Well, I guess we're using Fred's butt to scale, that's still a fairly deep river, I guess. But still, a pretty wild episode in that regard, and really memorable, Good job, Flintstones! So, if you haven't seen this one before, I would suggest to check it out, man. There's still some laughs and stuff kind of going on in there, but a lot of it is just, a human episode. Things that people deal with, but things that don't get talked a lot about on TV. But with all of that, we do have some more behind the scenes kind of things, with Bamm-Bamm, with the Rubbles and all that kind of stuff going on over here.
So yes indeed, hey? Bamm-Bamm Rubble! So let's take a quick look as to how this character came to be. So, in Season 3 of the Flintstones, we got introduced to the first infant main character of the show, Pebbles Flintstone, where she became an instant success. So with that, the writers figured, we should add another kid to the show, double up on that success, and to even things out, we should have the Rubbles have a child, so the two families are the same, 3 and 3. So they started to work on that. But, what kind of a kid would you have? So many choices! Well, they figured, if the Flintstones have a daughter, well then, the Rubbles should have a son, Variety! So they started to develop this infant cave boy child. And for inspiration, well, they kind of decided to take a bit of a shortcut. So in the early 60s, there was another Hanna-Barbera show called Rough and Ready. In this show, they did feature a Neanderthal child who was named Ubble Ubble. This Ubble Ubble kid was impossibly strong, and he walked around with a big giant club just to give himself some more protection. So the Flintstones people were like, that kid, absolutely would fit in the modern Stone Age. So they just basically used that character as the whole creative process of creating Bamm-Bamm. They gave him different clothes to wear and a new 2-word name. Also, Flintstones cartoonist Gene Hazelton changed up the look of the character, where he basically was inspired by his own son, Wes, and tried to basically draw Wes as a cave boy. And you put all of that together and bam! Bamm-Bamm! You got a new baby character! And so, thusly, you get to this featured Flintstones episode, which could also technically be called When Bamm-Bamm Met Pebbles. These two have been completely inseparable since the time they met. Like I said, love at first sight. They've been basically dating each other their entire lives. Crazy! So further down the road, when they're teenagers, they do start to date. Further down that road, they do get married and have kids, which is pretty awesome, and you could have seen that coming even based on this first episode, But we will get to those other things with them in other episodes and videos. So let's talk about some things within this episode, yeah. And we start off where we see Bamm-Bamm first being left on someone else's doorstep. So with that note in his little turtle shell kind of a basket, we do learn that Bamm-Bamm is an orphan. But we don't learn anything about Bamm-Bamm's biological parents. Or, what happened to them. The only thing that we really know is that within that note, they just wished that somebody else could give Bamm-Bamm the life that they couldn't really give him. Which is pretty wild. But this episode, man,
it does feature a whole lot of heavy themes. And these themes really do showcase the whole concept of how the Flintstones was originally a cartoon show that was made for and aimed towards an adult audience. But later on, a lot of kids started watching the show, they really liked it, so a lot of the stories became a bit more silly, goofy, kind of more aimed towards the younger audiences. But you still had some more mature themes kind of happening here and there. Like for example, when Pebbles was first introduced, they showed Wilma as being pregnant, which is something you've never seen in a cartoon before, and the fact that, thankfully off screen, Wilma gave birth to her child. So, like with the Rubbles, they kind of wanted to do something different, and they went the complete opposite route. The fact that the Rubbles cannot conceive a child together.
Which, holy crap! If you're a kid watching this show, man, when I was a kid, that's something I never even thought of, something I never even thought could happen, so those things are pretty wild.
Even with the whole adoption process, fighting over a child in court, things, as a kid, again, you never conceive of. Seemingly far out for a cartoon, but man, something that does happen and something that should be talked about once in a while, But there were some other things in this episode that, are just kind of light and fluffy and pretty cool. For example, when Barney gets the newspaper, which was next to Bamm-Bamm, he reads a quick headline about how the local baseball team is doing. That team being the Bedrock Dodgers. So the sports fan in me totally loves little tidbits like that. So clearly that is a reference to the Los Angeles Dodgers, who at the time of this episode did, more or less recently move to Los Angeles from Brooklyn. It seems like just some kind of quick thing that Barney said and you'd never hear it again, but in the 1981 TV special, Wind Up Wilma, she actually became a pitcher for the Bedrock Dodgers. So hooray! And of course, it wouldn't be a Flintstones episode if we did not have some modern references in Stone Age form. So let us get to those things. Firstly, the family that wanted to adopt Bamm-Bamm were the wealthy, well-to-do Stonyfellers. Stonyfeller is, of course, a reference to the real-life rich, well-to-do family, the Rockefellers. And, realistically, Rockefeller, that is an absolute Stone Age Flintstone-type sounding name, but it is a real name, so they couldn't use it. So Rockefeller to Stonyfeller. Good, good, good. Mr. Stonyfeller's lawyer was the fantastic and superb Perry Masonry, which is, of course, the reference to that top-notch, amazing, fictional TV lawyer, Perry Mason. Also on the Perry Mason show, one of the other lawyers that show up from time to time is District Attorney Hamilton Burger, who in the show is nicknamed Hamburger. So with that, Barney's lawyer was Bronto Burger. Classic, eh? Classic Flintstones. But, that's pretty much the meat and potatoes of this episode, all the interesting little twists and turns and all that kind of stuff that happened within it. And as I say, with any new things with Bamm-Bamm and the Flintstones and Pebbles, we will get to those episodes when we get to them. So yeah, man, with this, that, those, and the other things, I guess that's that. Also, if you're interested, I created my own comic book channel, 215 Comics, and currently I have created my own cartoon series, The Adventures of the Density, and recently started a radio series featuring my newest character, Elastomorph, with more titles to come. So if you want to check it out, I'll leave a link up top here to that channel, and some links at the end of the video. Yeah!
Right on, and there you go. So thanks for watching the video. I hope you liked it as much as I did making it. Also, feel free to check out the source material that I featured in this video. And if you want to leave a comment on anything you may have liked or things I might have missed in this, feel free to do so. Or anything else, just to say hi. That's cool too. And other than that, have a great day. Thanks.